So I'm going to call the executive committee to order at 1:37 p.m. And before we get started, I'd just like to acknowledge that today I'm calling in from the traditional and unceded territories of the Coast Salish peoples, which includes the Musqueam, Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, Coquitlam, Katzie nations. I want to acknowledge that these are the lands by which I'm calling in from today, but acknowledging that this is a virtual meeting, that we're all calling in from different locations, and that we should all be taking time to acknowledge and center the knowledge of the nations by which the lands we're currently occupying belong to, and acknowledging how we can stand in solidarity with Indigenous communities. And so I'm going to move us along to the roll call of attendance for today. And I'll call on everyone by position. And if you can please share your name, pronouns, and access needs, that would be great. And so I'll begin with myself. Hi, everyone. My name is Gabe Leosis. My pronouns are he, him, his. And my access needs are met other than I need to leave shortly before 4 p.m. And so if our meeting hasn't ended by then, I will be passing the chair off to Corbett, who has volunteered to chair in my absence should the meeting go past 4 p.m. And I'll move on now to the VP Events and Student Affairs.
Hello, my name is Jess. My pronouns are she, her, hers. For my access needs, I'm going to keep my camera off today, and I may need to leave at 2:30, and then I'll let you know if I'm able to rejoin in the afternoon, but I will keep you posted via chat.
Thank you, Jess. The VP External and Community Affairs.
Hi, this is Matt. My pronouns are he, him, his. As of right now, for my accessibility needs, I'm very low energy today. It's been a pretty hard day, not gonna lie. So I'm gonna try to be as present as possible. And if I have to log off, I will be back shortly and can communicate with Gabe via text as well. So thank you.
Thank you for sharing, Matt. The VP Equity and Sustainability has sent in her regrets, so she won't be joining us today. The VP Finance and Service, or the VP Finance and Services has not joined us yet, although I think she will be joining us shortly, as she was just in the last meeting that many of us were in, so probably just moving Zoom rooms. The VP Internal and Organizational Development.
Hi, everyone. My name is Corbett. Pronouns are he, him, his. Access needs, I'm at home on my laptop, so I don't have a camera.
No worries, Corbett. And VP University and Academic Affairs.
Hey, everyone. My name is Serena. My pronouns are they, she. In terms of access needs, experiencing a bit of brain fog, and also my internet says that it's unstable, so I'll keep my camera off for today.
Thanks, Serena. We'll move on then to the society staff, starting with operations organizer.
Hi, everyone. My name's Aisha. My pronouns are she, her, hers, and my access needs are met.
Thanks, Aisha. Board organizer.
Hi everyone, good afternoon. This is Ella. Pronouns are she and her, and all of my access needs are met as well.
Policy Research and Community Affairs Coordinator.
Hi everyone, my name is Bailey. Pronouns she, her, hers. Access needs are met.
Thank you. Administrative Assistant.
Hi, my name is Christina. My pronouns are she, her, and all my access needs are met.
Thanks, Christina. We also have today joining us Kashish, if you want to share your name, pronouns, access needs.
Hi everyone, everyone. My name is Kashish. My pronouns are she, hers. All my access needs are met, but my laptop can be a little finicky, so I apologize if I cut out or anything.
No worries. Thanks for joining us today. And Almas has joined us. Almas, would you like to share name, pronouns, access needs? If you can hear me, Almas?
It looks like it's in the chat.
Oh, where is my chat? Okay. So Almas has typed her intro in the chat. Access needs are met, class at 2:30. Are you saying something to me, Gabe? Yeah, I was just asking if you wanted to do your roll call of attendance. Did you hear me? Or are you able to hear me rather? Maybe not. Okay, no worries. Okay. Did anyone here not have an opportunity to share their name, pronouns, access needs?
I don't know if I should.
Oh, Devin. Yes, I missed you. Devin, go ahead.
That's okay. My name's Devin. I'm the GSWSSU counselor. She, her, hers pronouns. My access needs are met, but after my little segment, I'll probably just head out because I have some other work to do. Thanks, everyone.
No worries. Thanks for being with us today. Anyone else that I might have missed? Okay, we'll move on to section 4 of our agenda, which is a consent agenda. And I'll read 4.1 out loud, which reads, be it resolved to adopt the consent agenda by unanimous consent. And today we have one motion under the consent agenda, which is 4.1.1. And we have minutes from the last executive committee meeting on September 20th, 2021. Are there any objections to the motions encompassed in the consent agenda? All right, so this, seeing no objections, this is carried with unanimous approval of the executive committee. And so we'll move on to item 5, which is adoption of the agenda. And I'll read out 5.1 now. And the question reads, be it resolved to adopt the agenda as presented. Do I have a mover for this motion?
Jess.
Jess moves. Is there a seconder?
Corbett seconds.
Any discussion, any amendments, comments, questions, concerns? Go ahead, Corbett.
Yeah, hi everyone. I've got 2 amendments. I sent an email in today, and I think, yeah, today. So I'll paste them in the chat. Give me 1 second to grab that. Okay. So the first one is a motion around recommending a policy change to council related to leave of absences. So I'm just having difficulty with the one thing I've noticed is if your motion is too long, you can't actually paste it in the chat anymore. I have to break it down, which is good, I guess, in some ways, and cut it off. But confusing. That's one chunk. Here's the other one. The second amendment is a motion. Sorry, the second. Yeah, second thing I'd like to amend the motion for is add another motion related to the executive approving space storage for one group. So I'll put it in as a title here. It's SFU robot soccer club storage. And the motion is as follows. Oh, when I'm might have a third one. It's about putting an item to the agenda, AGM agenda. I've been trying to get feedback from a person to double check, but they have not responded, I don't believe.
Do you want to circle back to that?
Yeah, we'll circle
Okay.
back. I might be able to amend the agenda in the middle of the meeting and change.
Okay. I have an amendment to put forward as well, and I can share that with you now. It's a motion to put forward an agenda item for the annual general meeting, and I'll paste it in the chat now. Let's see if I can do it all in one go. No, I cannot. Wow, Zoom has really made this a pain in the arse. Okay. So I put it in the chat there in 3 separate chunks, and we can just title this Accessible Course Practices Campaign AGM Motion. I'd also like to add a motion for regrets directly following the section titled Adoption of the Agenda. And this motion will be specifically for ratifying regrets from Marie for mental health reasons. So the motion will read, be it resolved to ratify regrets from Marie Haddad. That's personal mental health. Are there any other amendments to put forward at this time from members of the executive committee? All right. Seeing none, we will, well, first of all, we have a couple amendments proposed. So I'll move that batch of amendments that have been put forward, mainly by myself and Corbett. Is there a seconder for this?
Jeff.
Just seconds. Thank you. We'll put this to a vote. So we have amendments put forward for the agenda. We'll put it to a vote now. All those in favor, seeking unanimous consent on this motion. If you'd like to vote against or abstain, please raise your hand now. Okay, this is carried unanimously, this amendment to the main motion. And so we'll move to the main motion again, which reads, be it resolved to adopt the agenda as amended. Any anything else on the main motion before we put it to a vote? Seeing none, I will put the question to a vote. All those in favor, seeking unanimous consent on this motion. All right, this is carried. And we'll move to item number, well, the section titled regrets. And so I'll read the motion now. Be it resolved to ratify regrets from Marie Haddad for personal mental health circumstances. Is there a mover for this?
Matt.
Matt, is there a seconder?
Corbett.
Corbett seconds. Any discussion? All right, seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor of this motion seeking unanimous consent. If you'd like to vote against or abstain, please raise your hand at this time. All right, this is carried unanimously, which means that brings us to section 6 of our agenda, which is report from committees. And the first one is 6.1, report from the Oversight Committee on Executive Officers. And joining us today for this item is the Oversight Committee on Executive Officers Chair, Devin. And so Devin, I'm not sure if you wanted to start us off today on this discussion.
Yeah, sure, that would be great. basically, I am here today in hopes, on behalf of the Oversight Committee on Executive Officers, because we were hoping, or the committee was hoping, to meet with you guys at some point to go over our current process of assessing work reports and extensions and all that kind of stuff. But we want to make sure that we're all on the same page. And so no one at all is being sidelined. Specifically you guys, by how we're assessing work reports, and also as none of us are on the executive committee, having a conversation about some things we might have missed when we're doing the assessment because we don't fully understand all the roles and duties incorporated in the job. And so the original suggestion by the committee was to try to assign one OCO member to each executive and have them organize a time to meet, and therefore it's not as hard to find like a time where everyone is available to have those type of conversations. However, I did want to see what you guys were comfortable with. If you guys would rather do it in a group, or it just is harder sometimes to find available time. Our current moving forward plan is to assign about 2 members of the OCO committee to an exec, just to go over their portion of like the semester report and work reports, and then we'll rotate through every couple of months so we make sure that it is being impartial and no one is making any type of bias towards what they might be reporting back to the committee. Almost, you're saying you'd prefer a group so it is impartial. That's understandable. Okay, just go, or I guess I'm not sharing. Okay, sorry.
All right, Devin. Jess, you can go ahead.
Yeah, I'd also prefer a group, even if it's not like all 7 execs able to be present, as long as it's like 2 and 2 execs and 2 folks from Oversight. I don't mind if that's a combination that we could work with so that it isn't impartial.
Devin, go ahead.
Yeah, a suggestion that I would have for the group, as I know it's hard to find time, is that maybe Oversight can offer a couple of dates that we can meet, and then whoever will do like 3 sessions, and whoever can make those sessions can make them. Alternatively, I can also create a let us meet or a when to meet and have OCO as well as you guys fill it out, execs fill it out, and then I can kind of pair people together and have larger groups. So maybe in the end we do like 3 sessions because half of you guys are available on one day, a quarter on the other, and another quarter on another day. So yeah, if that sounds good to you guys, would you prefer just to come up with some times, or 3 sessions, and or would you prefer if I made a when to meet?
Sorry, I'm unable to list in the chat. So I have to unmute.
Yeah, you can go ahead, Matt.
All right, thank you. I think like in between our executive meetings, we have dev sessions at this time, where most of us usually make it to prep for the week, and that's usually bi-weekly. So I think the best bet would probably be trying to plan it within like executive dev sessions, or creating like an alternative time that we could block off. That would probably be like a suggestion at least.
Thank you, Matt. On that note, next week, because Monday is a holiday, we actually don't have the dev session during this time. It's actually on Tuesday instead. But that is still an option though, if that works. I know that Jess in particular is not able to do Tuesdays, so we can find an alternative time for that, if that works. Devin, it's for your information, it's on the next one's on Tuesday, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. So really any time during that 3-hour window could work. Serena, go ahead.
Yeah, just about Tuesday. I just wanted to provide my availability for that because I'm not available from 11 to 12, but I'll still have the meeting open and that kind of thing in the background, just for Devin's information, but I'm available the other 2 hours.
That's great. Thanks, Serena. Was there anything else anyone wanted to add? Devin, go ahead again.
Just to give some more context, actually, I think one of the big discussions that might come up is we're going to actually go over the semester reports soon. And thank you guys for completing those and all of that. And so if you had any thoughts or just to give you guys complete context for what we want to talk about, I have set a really hard line and will continue to set a whole hard line that will not be talking about any kind of like personal issues. It's really about the roles, the work reports, and now just because they just came out, the semester reports. But if you have any concerns, really feel free to email me or message me, and I'll do my best to address them. We're probably just going to come up with some stock questions on Thursday and ask those questions. So no one should be veering off, hopefully, from those questions. But yeah, if you had any concerns or anything that you don't want to voice in this meeting, please message me.
Thanks a lot, Dev.
The list. Sorry.
Of course. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just had a question about what actually prompted, because I know last year the Oversight Committee was like, it was still present, but it was a little bit inactive, and also like the merge with council and the board at the time, I guess, was a little bit different. So I just kind of want to know like what kind of prompted like this, and like is there, and I know that we'll probably go over more of this, but yeah, I just kind of wanted to have a little bit of a better understanding to where like the conversation like started, and what if there's anything that we should prepare, I guess, or anything on that side note at least.
Go ahead, Devin.
Yeah, that's a great question. And so kind of this is the first kind of year that Oversight and the last couple of months has actually like been reviewing work reports, I believe, and going through like operating off our terms of reference and all of those things. And so I think part of our year plan is just wanting to create a strategy and a streamlined reporting structure and assessing structure that can be passed on to other executive committees, other oversight. And so it's not dependent on who's on oversight each term to how it operates. And so we also didn't want to create this structuring and then have exec go, this doesn't make any sense to how we do our jobs. And so we want to make sure that everything is okay on both sides and give you guys the opportunity to say to us, hey, this way you're doing something doesn't really make sense, and give us pushback on some of the suggestions that we might put forward. We just want to make sure that conversation is completely open. And so exec never feels like we aren't trying to, or at least on my side, I don't want you guys to ever feel like I am breathing down your neck or doing something that I didn't clearly lay out that those were the policies, if that makes sense. The one-on-one was pushed by a couple members of the committee quite hard, but I will let them know that having a group, it would be preferable to you guys from an impartiality point of view. I hope that answered the question.
Thanks, Devin. Yeah, Matt, did you have a follow-up at all?
Not necessarily. I think the rest will be most likely, we'll probably be able to have a more thorough conversation in, I guess, our session that we will be having. Yeah, so I guess we'll just wait until then. I was hoping that more actually oversight committee members would have showed up today. But yeah, I guess for next week.
Almas, go ahead.
Another question that I have is this a bi-weekly thing, or is this, let's say, a monthly thing, or everything that we're something that we're doing every 2 months, or maybe after a semester?
Evan?
Yeah, I think I don't think we need to do it monthly or anything, but maybe semesterly. Maybe we can make it a plan. But this is part of what we kind of wanted to talk about, creating these structures. Maybe it's a plan to do it every time semester reports are submitted. So each time when there's turnover, like I will be turning over in December, and so there'll be new OCO chair, and so perhaps that would be a good time, because it's the change of the semester as well, to meet again. And so if you guys are agreeable, I think doing this on a semester basis after semester reports are completed could be a good strategy to make sure that everyone is on the same page.
Thank you, Devin. Almas, you have a follow-up.
Yeah, thank you so much, Devin. That sounds good because it gives us a chance to discuss our side of the semester report too. But I really think that one-on-one is not the best way to go forward, because there are people from different I don't know how to phrase this actually, but yeah, we all have different ways of working. And I think if we're at random put with just one person, they might not understand our way of working. So my personal preference would be to have at least 2 people, so that there's no partiality. Not like I'm saying that people will be partial, but I just feel like it's better for both parties. I just can't frame it well at this point, but I think I sort of conveyed the message. Maybe I'll just try to frame it better. And
No worries. Thanks for sharing, Almas. Devin, you're on the speakers list.
I just want to, first of all, almost know that I did understand what you're getting at with that, and everyone having different perspectives. If there's more people in the room as well, there's more opportunity to come to a consensus together, or somewhat of a consensus together quicker, rather than OCO having to reconvene and be like, hey, what did everyone say? And then go off that. But I was going to suggest as well is that hopefully before next meeting, we're going to talk about this more and perhaps come up with some questions or guidelines that we want to talk about. And I will email them to you guys first, if that's preferable. And so, you know, or at least an outline of what will be talked about and our current plan of assessing work reports, because those are the main thing we do. And so everyone is on the same page as what's being discussed. Everyone has equal time to prepare. So if there's something you guys want to push back with or really want us to do, everyone has that equal opportunity to prepare, if that works for everyone.
Thank you, Devin. I think that would be really appreciated. I'm seeing a lot of support for that in the chat there with the +++. So thank you very much. Is there anything else that anyone wanted to discuss on this topic? Okay, so I guess just reviewing action items. One of them is to, for the executive to get back to you, Devin, on a couple of times, maybe 2 times outside of our development session on Tuesday, where these meetings could take place. And then on your end to, I guess, send us what to expect for these meetings.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Fantastic. Did I miss anything, anyone? Almas, I also see you listed yourself again, so you can go ahead if you like.
So my question is, are we going to do these in our development sessions on Monday, or are we supposed to send separate times on Tuesday? Because then I think it completely depends on what kind of meetings we have scheduled for every Tuesday. So I will have to look at the specific week that we're planning to meet.
So maybe this is a better way of doing things. Almas, can I just ask, other than Jess, who I know isn't coming to the development session on Tuesday, which is from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m., is there anyone else who already knows that they aren't going to be at that development session on Tuesday?
Am I able to make a suggestion?
Mm-hmm.
I think it would be good because I know that they already, there's probably already a meeting time that you meet for your meetings, right? So if we could put our suggested times where typically we have our development sessions, are you able to put the suggested time for when you have also your meeting times, and maybe we could also make that, since we know that people will be blocked off for that. And then if we need one more time, then we can try figure it out. Or even get, I guess, your committee, get their most up-to-date availability first before sending it to us, and then we can prioritize that time. So I think that might be the easiest way. Because the only thing that I know is that like exec will meet at our dev session where mostly everybody is, and then for your committee, just that time will already be blocked off. And I know that it was later in the day or something on Thursdays, but other than that, we can just go from there, because then at least we already have 2 standard times then.
Go ahead, Devin.
Yeah, I just wanted to point of information there that our meetings are on Thursdays from 6 to 7. And so I know that they're outside of work hours. If that's cool with everyone, then that's great. But I just know that it is a later time in the day. But OCO is free every Thursday as well. So it doesn't necessarily have to be on the week that we have meetings. We're meeting this Thursday. Yeah, that's great. I can also, what I'll also do just in case is right after I leave, I'll send out a let us meet to get updated information from the committee, and I will forward that to everyone, or I can forward it to Gabe, and you guys can come up with some times around that if that Thursday time is too late.
Almas, go ahead.
Thank you, Devin. I was about to say that, is it a good idea to have these 2 sessions slotted, one on the development session for the executives and other on Thursday at your meeting, if that's okay with other people? Because I think it will be easier for you guys to take off 3 hours from your schedule, because someone or the other in the committee would definitely be available. And since you said that everybody doesn't have to be there, so I think that works as a better arrangement, because most of the executives are available on Tuesdays, and most of the oversight committee members are available on Thursdays. So based on the oversight members available on Tuesday for that slot, they can present their semester report at that time, and the others on Thursday.
Thank you, Almas. I think that works. So Devin, maybe if you can include the executives on the calendar invite for your next meeting, I think that would be helpful.
Sure. Just to confirm, we're talking about this coming week, right? So the Tuesday would be the 12th, and then the Thursday, the 14th, right? Just to confirm I'm thinking about the right week.
Yeah, so in terms of the exec dev session, it would be on the 12th. Okay. And then you said that you have a meeting on this Thursday, right? On the 7th?
Yeah, but we'll probably go over and create questions, but I can call an extra meeting for the 14th, just so it's still close together. So we'll just do that. If that works, then we're not spreading this over multiple weeks as well. And if those times don't work for anyone, we could always try to set up an additional time, or if somebody was comfortable talking, couldn't make those times, and was comfortable talking one-on-one with me, I would be happy to do that as well.
This sounds good. Okay, I'll send this in writing afterwards too, just in case anyone is kind of lost. But this sounds good. Did anyone have any questions on this before we move on? Sounds good. Again, Devin, thank you for coming today, and chat soon. All right, so we still that was report from Oversight Committee on Executive Officers. We have 2 more reports from committees, the first of which is the report from the HR, the Human Resources and Personnel Subcommittee. And I can report on this as the chair of the subcommittee. And so at our last meeting, we discussed a couple of, a number of items. The first of which was we had a request from the member services coordinator team to reinstate or reinstall a position that we had employed previously called the MSc Generalist. And so we had a discussion about next steps and how to move forward with that. We set up a meeting with one of the member services coordinators to discuss how to move forward in this regard. We also had a discussion around the current draft of a job description for a new position that we're looking to create called an IT coordinator. And so we had a review of that job description, and we're looking to have a follow-up meeting between myself, Aisha, Corbett, and John to finalize that job description and hopefully move forward with that. We also had a discussion about planning a hiring committee development session for counselors and really anyone else who would participate in hiring committees this year or in future years, and also updating our hiring handbook to be up to date with current hiring practices. And so that's something that myself, Aisha, Ella, and Corbett are going to be working on. The development session in particular, Aisha and I are going to be working on that hiring handbook, which I think will come in handy as we embark on many more hiring committees throughout this year. We had two discussions about developing and further fleshing out some of our policies, one of which was around codifying in policy what an interview matrix is and what it looks like for hiring committee interviews. And then we also had a discussion around establishing a policy for what our role as the employer is in communicating with constituency groups who have a SFSS coordinator. So that includes most of our, FNSA, SOCA, DNA. What is our role in communicating information related to the staff person who is supporting their work? And we also had a discussion around conducting a review of all of our administrative policies. So that includes like 17 different policy manuals, and reviewing them on their alignment with current practices and whether or not they still align with our current practices or if they are out of date. And so that is the update on some of the discussion we had at the HR and Personnel Subcommittee at our last meeting. There was a lot of action items taken out of that meeting, and I look forward to reporting back to the Executive Committee on what the work of the subcommittee, the HRP subcommittee, is and continues to be. So we'll move on then to the next update, which is 6.3, update from hiring committees. And we'll conduct this report as usual, these updates as usual. If everyone can please just give an update on where you're at with the hiring committees that you're a member of, that would be great. And maybe we'll start off with Corbett.
Okay. So I'm on the temporary finance coordinator hiring committee. I believe there's now been a date set for us to meet, and after the posting is closed, so we can review candidates and shortlist. The other one I'm on is still the board building coordinator building coordinator full-time roles, some of the hybrid positions, and we've had some meetings talking about that role. I believe there's also another follow-up pretty soon for another meeting to hopefully finalize everything so we can go forward with it. It's taken a long time, but so I think there's some progress on that now. And I believe that all the other ones I was on are finished now.
Thank you, Corbett. Jess, would you like to give updates on the hiring committees that you're a member of?
Yes, I am on the Digital Media Assistant Hiring Committee with Almas. We finished interview number 1 today out of 4. We are completing interviews by next week and then hopefully onboarding them the week after. So it's going well so far. Oh, and BD's on there too.
Fantastic. Thank you, Jess. Serena, would you like to go next?
Yeah, I'm just on the admin assistant hiring committee. I sent out a when to meet to get us to all meet the week that just passed because I believe the posting closed around the same time, but unfortunately there wasn't a time where all of us could meet. So I'll send out another one to meet to see if we can meet sometime this week, just to go over the candidates because the posting just closed, I believe.
Thank you, Serena. Alice, would you like to go next?
As Jess mentioned, we are both on the same committee. And we also have BD on our committee. We had one of the interviews today, 3 more lined up. And then we will make our final decision the end of next week. Thank you.
Fantastic. Sounds great. I can go next, and I'm on 2 hiring committees right now. The first of which is the Out on Campus Coordinator Hiring Committee. And we conducted a first round of interviews, and we interviewed 3 candidates, and we as a committee decided to actually reopen the posting for a second round of interviews. And so right now we're in the middle of that posting period. It is set to close on next Tuesday, so on October the 12th, Tuesday, October 12th. And we're meeting as a committee on Friday, October the 15th to shortlist candidates for another round of interviews. The other hiring committee I'm on that just got struck is the temporary financial coordinator position. And much like the other one, committee that I'm on, it is also right now, the posting is open and it is set to close on Monday, October 11th on Thanksgiving. And we're meeting as a committee also on Friday, October 15th to shortlist candidates from the pool of applicants and then determine interview times that work for everyone and brainstorm interview questions and move forward with those as well. Aisha, are you on any hiring committees at the moment?
No, I'm not. Wow.
Does it feel good?
You know, that I have to process that. I think yes. And my immediate answer is yes, that does feel good.
Yeah, okay. Ella, what about you?
I'm actually also not on any hiring committees right now, but I'm happy to step in for the next couple that come up.
Sounds good. Well, you know, this is a sign, y'all, that we're winding down. That's good. Did anyone else did anyone else not have an opportunity to give updates? Okay. Okay, we'll move on then. That was a report from committees, everyone. And that takes us to section 7 of the agenda, which is new business. And so our first motion under new business is SFSS staff office equipment purchases. This was submitted by Corbett, and there is an attachment titled SFSS office equipment purchases 2021. And it is a briefing note. And I'll read the motion now. Whereas the SFSS has created new staffing positions and hired people to fulfill those roles, whereas the SFSS has aging office equipment that needs to be replaced, whereas it would be good to have a pool of backup equipment to provide a faster response time, to set up equipment for future hires or replacing damaged equipment, whereas the Space Expansion Fund allows for the maintenance of student space, which includes the equipment inside those spaces. Whereas the Space Expansion Fund has over $1 million in surplus funds and is historically underutilized, be it resolved that I think this might be a typo, Corbett, but I have to read it out loud anyway. Be it resolved that council approves spending of up to $90,000 from the Space Expansion Fund for the purchase of 45 workstation equipment. Be it further resolved that council tasks the governance committee to work with the Finance and Administrative Services Committee to develop to council a financial policy recommending a regular office equipment update cycle so that it can be properly budgeted. Is there a mover for this?
Corbett moves.
Corbett moves. Is there a seconder?
Jess, second.
Jess seconds. Okay, Corbett. Before we move into discussion, I'm just noticing you might have written this motion for council. We might just need to amend it to make it a recommendation.
Yeah, that's what I realized was we just had to modify the first part of the thing to say, like, make a first be resolved clause for the executive to recommend the following motion to council. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So the whole regular motion stays the same. We just put something way above it.
Okay, so we can just add something that says, be it resolved that the executive committee recommend the following motion to council, and then just put a colon, and then keep the two be it further resolved clauses.
Yes, that works.
Let me just type that in the chat. Okay. Maybe, seeing as this is obviously a matter of jurisdiction, can we just take this as a friendly amendment?
Yeah, I think so. It's mostly like it was a more or less a typo mistake. That's all.
Yeah. Does anyone have any objections to taking this as a friendly amendment? Basically meaning we don't have to move or second it and put it to a vote. Okay, we'll just consider that amendment approved as a friendly amendment. And Corbett, you can go ahead and introduce the motion at this time.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, thank you. So the briefing note is also attached to help go into the costings and the breakdowns, but which would be for council, but obviously it's helpful to have executive review it ahead of time. But generally the idea is for a while there, we've had this, long running issue that just has taken forever to be able to get to, related to equipment spending. We have a lot of aging computers all over the SFS that we've inherited when we moved over from the NBC to the sub. We had some difficulty trying to figure out how we'd actually buy this equipment because there wasn't necessarily anything budgeted for, especially for this amount of money or the size. So it took me a while to kind of figure out where this funding would come from. And so, after a lot of going back and forth, the best solution I found was the Space Expansion Fund. And that we also need to buy, not only do we need to buy computers to replace our aging ones, but also to pay for additional staff. That new staff have been hired, as well as maybe the expansion. And like we go to one office and originally thought we could have it for 2 computers, but actually after working on it, like the Go desk specifically, but I've gotten feedback saying that they prefer 3 computers to make it easier for everyone at the desk. Especially in the evenings when you have 1 building coordinator and 2 assistants, and other factors like this. So running all those numbers, it works, and having some additional extra computers, either for breakdown or new hirings and stuff that could be coming down the line. I think having about an additional 5 or so would be, total amount comes out to be 45 computers. And the breakdown is basically there's 2 types of computers we'd be ordering. One would be the PCs, Dell PCs, Windows, and the other is a Mac. And there's 40 PCs and 5 Macs, with each one or 2 each from each group being a backup computer as well. And the brief note breaks down each specs for each one. The Macs are the more expensive versions, unfortunately, but because they are also designed more for primarily for communications office and other staff that will be using it for like editing, like media editing. So for instance, our like could be for our administrative coordinator doing some video editing, our comms department, obviously for all three of those people, three of those positions need them. And yeah, that's kind of where we're at. Unfortunately, because we are using SFUs, we're connected with SFU through our networking support agreement, or sorry, our desktop support agreement. We do have to use SFU's procurement system and prices, but fortunately, the prices also include things like all the shipping and tax and warranty costs and stuff on top of that. So it's easy to just get a final number and what's included, which includes like, you know, monitors, desktop, mouse and keyboard and all that kind of stuff. So it's all a big bundle. But it is quite a bit of money, but it's also something that ideally, and the reason for this second be resolved clause is also developing a policy where we do these updates like once every 5 years or so. So the big costs each time, but we can theoretically start budgeting for them each year as opposed to having to like search around every year for what's an available fund we can use. We can actually start saving money to put aside for these, you know, these tech upgrades every 5 or so years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you, Corbett, for introducing this motion. Yeah, are there any questions from members of the executive committee about this motion? I do. Yeah, Jess, go ahead, please.
So to clarify, we're bringing this motion to council. Okay,
Corbett?
good.
Yes, that's correct. We can't, because the amount of money, like the bylaws prevent executive committee from one, spending anything that's not budgeted. So if it's not in our budget, we can't spend it. And two, anything over 5K as well. So even if it is budgeted, we can only spend a certain amount. So in both cases, this would be under council's jurisdiction. So all the best we can do, again, it's good to have exec give first eyeballs on it, to look at it first and raise any concerns or issues, and before this goes to council, or maybe not even goes to council, for instance.
Mm-hmm. Thanks, Corbett. Alice has a follow-up, and then we'll return back to Jess, who has listed herself again.
My follow-up was to Corbett. I wanted to know if we have an estimate of how much we're planning to spend on this upgrade.
Working out to be about $90,000.
Thank you.
Jess, go ahead.
I'm just going to voice my support here, and as well when we bring it to council as well. I think that when we moved to when we moved remotely, our staff had to take home really crappy computers, work on that, and then it was so bad that they would use their own personal computers to do their work adequately from home for like 8 hours a day. And now that we're moving in person, they're still having to use their own personal computers for work. And that must be so frustrating. You can't really separate your work and your personal life from your laptop, and that's difficult for them to do. I'm also excited to have like adequate materials and supplies for our staff that actually have a camera that can connect to Wi-Fi. They don't have to like bring in their personal laptop to work just in case their work one doesn't work. Like as employers and as a union, we should be giving that to them. So hopefully that will pass at council. So voicing my support here, and as well, I'm going to speak on it at our next meeting.
Thank you very much, Jess. Corbett, go ahead.
Yeah, also, I kind of want to talk about why it also took so long for this to get in front of us, because we knew this was a long-term problem. But initially, when I started looking at this, we were thinking of only just buying a few extra laptops for staff, especially new hires or people that are on remote. And that was generally, we thought would be small enough to especially if we could take advantage of deals over the summertime and just buy specific computers. And so we could potentially take to the exec or something like that and get it passed, but stuff wasn't budgeted, stuff we couldn't actually just take advantage of deals. We had to use whatever SFU's system was. And then when I actually started looking into more on how old some of our computers were, some I knew that it was old, but just the scope of it, realized that we had to kind of do a big sweep. So it's a big chunk of money, and I understand that it looks like a lot, but we do have money set aside for this kind of thing through the space expansion fund. We can use it for this purpose, and we can do it all in one big shot, as opposed to just constantly trying to find a few computers here and there, or money for a few computers every year or so, to kind of constantly be in a state of repair and stuff. It'd be easier if we're all in one, more or less all in a similar level of technology. Going forward.
Thanks very much, Corbett. Yeah, I'll just voice my support for this as well. Just from the perspective of, we're really short on equipment. We're hiring staff at an exponential rate, and we're not only under-equipped to provide adequate technology, but the technology itself is quite outdated. And so I think that it's our duty as our fiduciary duty as an employer to be able to provide our staff with equipment that is adequate and can help them perform their duties, so that we are ensuring that we also are providing our membership with the best services and service provision. So and I think that out of any of our funds, that it is appropriate for it to be coming from Space Expansion Fund, because as the motion does indicate, this fund is also historically underutilized. So this is perfect. Any other discussion on this motion? Okay, well, we'll put the question to a vote. So let me just read the motion, the be it resolved clauses one more time. Be it resolved that the executive committee recommend the following motion to council. Be it resolved that council approves spending of up to $90,000 from the Space Expansion Fund for the purchase of 45 workstation equipment. Be it further resolved that council task the governance committee to work with FASC to develop to council finance policy recommending a regular office equipment update cycle so that it can be properly budgeted. All those in favor? I'm seeking unanimous consent on this motion. Okay, this is carried unanimously. So just as a, hold on just one moment, please. Sorry about that. We have the next motion, which is 7.2, recommendation number 1 from Internal Communications Working Group. This was submitted by myself, and there is a briefing note to go along with this, which is titled Briefing Note for the Recommendation for Executive Officers to Meet More Frequently with Staff. And so I'll read the question. Be it resolved that the executive committee commits that each executive officer shall organize and lead meetings with each staff member, either individually or altogether, that relates closest to their portfolio on a frequent basis to be determined by each respective vice president. And be it further resolved that the executive committee task the president, operations organizer, and VP internal and organizational development to work alongside the HR and personnel subcommittee and governance committee to codify this commitment within an SFSS administrative policy. I'll move this motion. Is there a seconder?
Jess seconds.
Jess seconds. Fantastic. So I'll introduce the motion, and this is as the motion indicate. Well, actually doesn't indicate, but this is a recommendation. Well, sorry, the briefing note indicates, but the motion does not, that this was a recommendation that came out of the Internal Communications Working Group. And just as a refresher, we've talked about it here before, but this working group was established at the request of staff who wanted a forum to brainstorm and recommend methods of closing the communication gap that does and has existed between council, the execs, and staff. And so a number of recommendations stemmed from this working group, but of which I'm trying really hard to try and implement. And one of them was that staff really crave a forum to communicate and discuss with the executive committee members who they work closest with. And so a direct recommendation from one of our staff from this working group was that each executive officer meet with the staff members that they work with closest, they work the most with, that relate most closely with their respective portfolios. And so just to help facilitate this process along, in the briefing note, I have provided examples of who and which staff positions each executive officer could meet with on a frequent basis to be determined by that specific VP. And so that's detailed in the briefing note. I won't go into it verbally, but I hope everyone had a chance to look at it. You know, it's my goal that each VP in this way can establish a meeting. And I think, like, personally, I think bi-weekly is good because that it provides a really close connection between the exec and staff in order to really provide a forum to have discussion about what, you know, the exec is working on currently, what support we need, what support they need, so that that things aren't happening last minute, that communication is consistently flowing. And generally, I think at the end of the day, this prevents burnout as well and facilitates a collaborative workplace. So with that, I will open the floor for discussion and ask if anyone has any questions and if this recommendation makes good sense to everyone. Jess, you have the floor.
I'm also voicing my support for this motion. I also found it difficult to have a streamline of communications with our staff, especially since we've hired so many within the past few months. Here, when we do this, we can hear the concerns and needs of our staff, but also voice where we need support as well. This role as an exec has changed drastically ever since we restructured our government, where we do a lot more in the back end, and we're leaning to staff to support us more in that way. In terms of projects and motions being passed at council, especially, when those pass at council, it automatically tasks our staff without them being notified in an adequate way and in a good timeline as well. So in doing this is able to, I guess, like alleviate any surprises that may come up that usually do before we had any of these consultations. But also these spaces would allow us to hear our staff and what they need and what they need help with, and where we can support them as well. So it'll be like a mutual relationship that I hope to develop and to continue on, and that will continue on even after we leave as execs to make sure that our staff is okay.
Thank you very much, Jess. Did anyone else want to have anything to contribute to the discussion on this motion? Almas, please.
I remember on our last internal communications meeting, this was something brought forward by the staff, and I'm in support as well, because in a hybrid or virtual environment like this, sometimes things which take very less time end up taking a lot more time than the staff or us executives anticipate, and it can be frustrating for both ends to get the job done. So I think this is the way to go forward. And I can see that there are two suggestions. I personally side more with the second one, but I think it also depends on how people like to work with others, and their choice will be based on their like the personal way or setup of working.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Almas. Yeah, and we'll discuss the second recommendation. It is a separate motion on the agenda, but we'll have an opportunity to discuss that too shortly. So thank you. Did anyone else want to contribute to the discussion on this item? Serena, Corbett, Matt, does this make sense and something you folks are comfortable with? Corbett says he's in favor. So I see Serena is giving the thumbs up on the Zoom. Wonderful. Okay, so I'm loving that emoji in the chat. Anyway, seeing that discussion is exhausted, and well, I think we'll put this to a vote. So let me just read the motion one more time. Be it resolved that the executive committee commits that each executive officer shall organize and lead meetings with each staff member, either individually or altogether, that relates closest to their portfolio on a frequent basis to be determined by each respective vice president. Be it further resolved that the executive committee task the president, operations organizer, and VP internal to work along with the HRP, with the HR and personnel subcommittee and governance committee to codify this commitment within an SFSS administrative policy. All those in favor of this motion, seeking the unanimous consent of the committee. If you'd like to object to the motion, please raise your hand now to indicate so. Okay, that's carried. And I think we'll consider 7.3 at this time, and then after that, maybe we'll take a small break. So we'll consider motion 7.3 now. This is titled Recommendation Number 2 from Internal Communications Working Group, recommendations for executive officers to meet more frequently with staff. This was also submitted by me. And the same briefing note is also being considered for this motion as well. The briefing note titled Recommendation for Executive Officers to Meet More Frequently with Staff. I'll read the question now. Be it resolved that the executive committee commits that each executive officer shall attend monthly staff meetings. Be it further resolved that the executive committee task the president, operations organizer, and VP internal and organizational development to work with the HR personnel subcommittee and governance committee to codify this commitment within an SFSS administrative policy. I will move this motion. Can I have a seconder?
Jess seconds.
Jess seconds. So in similar spirit to the last motion, this, by way of background, so our staff meetings happen on a monthly basis, and myself as a staff liaison officer and Aisha as the other SLO, we attend staff meetings on behalf of the employer. And those meetings are typically chaired by me. And this is how it's worked for a while now. However, there was a expression of interest from our staff in actually having the executive committee present in our staff meetings. Again, just as a reflection of the change in the role that the executive committee has and how close we work with staff under our governance and operation structure. And so having executive officers readily accessible and in attendance at these staff meetings, I think could be incredibly beneficial to, again, having a sense of improving the sense of being in a collaborative workplace. Now, if anyone is in or would like to know, because I have a feeling this question is coming up, staff meetings happen monthly and typically happen between 11 a.m. and 12 p.m. on Thursdays. And so the next one, write this down, 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. on Thursdays. The next one is on the 21st of October. So still a ways away. But with that, I'll open the floor for discussion. Go ahead, Jess.
Well, like I said again, I'm excited to speak with our staff every month. Also, I just have a question. Would they be in person now that everyone's in office?
That is a good question. One I don't have the answer to. I will say that we'll likely try and do it probably hybrid, as we're trying to accomplish with all of our meetings. But that is not official yet. Corbett, go ahead.
Sorry, can you give me the time range again? Like what time of the day that happens?
11 a.m. to 12 p.m.
Okay, yeah, I should be able to attend that.
Perfect. Oh, thanks, Jess. And I can, well, I think Aisha is the organizer of that calendar invite, but maybe Aisha, if you're able to add the exec only at sfs.ca to that calendar invite.
Yeah, will do.
Lovely, thank you. Jess has asked in the chat, do we keep these meetings somewhat informal, Gabe? We use a very loose version. Okay, we kind of use Robert's rules and we kind of don't. There's no like motions, but we kind of follow the spirit of Robert's rules, whereby we list, we direct respond, we take minutes, et cetera, but it's a lot less pressure than like say council or the executive committee. Any other discussion on the motion? Okay, well, I appreciate everyone's contributions to the discussion on this. We'll put this to a vote. I'll read the question one more time. We're considering 7.3. Be it resolved that the executive committee commits that each executive officer shall attend monthly staff meetings. Be it further resolved that the executive committee task the president, operations organizer, and VP internal and organizational development to work with the HR and personnel subcommittee and governance committee to codify this commitment within an SFSS administrative policy. All those in favor of this motion seeking unanimous consent, if you would like to vote against or abstain, please raise your hand. Seeing no objections, this motion is carried unanimously. And I think at this time, we'll take a, we're actually doing good for time. Oh, geez, actually we have a lot of discussion. Well, let's take a 5-minute break. So everyone come back at 2:55. All right, everyone. Let's reconvene. It's 2:58. Sorry, I'm 3 minutes over. But is everyone here? Just to confirm. Everyone.
Yes, did you also let Serena in? They were in the waiting room because they switched devices.
I did. Serena, you are here, correct?
Yes, thank you.
Nice. Okay, let's reconvene the executive committee. We have a couple more motions. Well, a couple, as in 5. We'll start with 7.4, which is titled First Nation Student Association Coordinator Hiring Committee. And this was submitted by me. And I'll read the question now. Be it resolved to appoint Marie Haddad and X to the FNSA Coordinator Hiring Committee as employer representatives. Is there a mover?
Jess move.
Jess moves. Is there a seconder?
Serena?
Serena seconds. All right. So in we've had a lot of discussion around the FNSA coordinator position in camera, and there's not much I can say, I think, in the open session of this meeting that I can share. However, we are moving forward with hiring an FNSA coordinator after much discussion. And so this means striking a hiring committee, and that's where this motion comes forward today. Under our new collective agreement, now get this, this is really exciting. Under the new collective agreement, we, members of constituency groups, can act as an employer representative on hiring committees. And so they can actually take what would usually be one of our spots on a hiring committee as employer reps. And so Marie has volunteered to be in one of those seats, and the X in the motion actually signifies that someone from FNSA can be on the hiring committee. Aisha and I have reached out to the FNSA to see if anyone wants to or has that capacity to serve in that role as an employer representative. And so I believe we're just waiting on that. And of course, I was speaking to Aisha about this this morning, and we would love to schedule a meeting with whoever does end up being the employer rep on this from FNSA, or if there is anyone who wants to, and to do some training with them on being on hiring committees. So did anyone have any questions about this motion? Aisha, are you on the line with us right now? Oh no, she told me she had to leave. Yeah, any questions at this time? Now, I don't believe we have someone yet from FNSA because we did contact them on Friday. And so that's not a lot of turnaround time. So at this time, we don't actually have that name. So if it's all right with everyone, I'd like to just approve a friendly amendment to the motion to strike and X because we don't have that name. Is that okay with everyone? Okay.
That's fine by me.
Cool. Okay, I'm seeing no questions, so we'll put this motion to a vote. Be it resolved to appoint Marie Haddad to the FNSA Coordinator Hiring Committee as an employer representative. All those in favor, seeking unanimous consent. This is carried unanimously. And we'll move on to 7.5, which is Accessibility Coordinator Hiring Committee. This was also submitted by me. Be it resolved to appoint Serena Baines and X to the Accessibility Coordinator Hiring Committee as employer representatives. Is there a mover?
Serena.
Serena moves. Is there a seconder?
Jess.
Jess seconds. So same situation here actually is that per the new collective agreement, someone from DNA would be eligible to serve as an employer rep on this committee. And so we've reached out to DNA to see if anyone wants to or has that capacity to be on this hiring committee. And we are just waiting on that. But Serena has volunteered to be one of the employer reps on this hiring committee. And I'm excited to see this in particular move forward because I know we've been talking about the accessibility coordinator position for a long time. And so are there any questions or comments on this motion? Same situation here. We don't have a name yet from DNA. So if everyone's agreeable, can we approve a friendly amendment just to strike and X, reflecting that we don't have that name yet? Okay, I'm seeing no objections to this, so I'm going to assume everyone's all right with it. With that, then we'll put the question to a vote. All those in favor of appointing Serena to the Accessibility Coordinator Hiring Committee as an employer representative, seeking unanimous consent. Carried unanimously. And we'll move on to the next motion, which is one of the ones that was added at the top of the meeting, which is titled Leave of Absence policy amendment recommendation. And so I will read the question now. Whereas Council Policies Rule 6 on resignations, leaves of absence, and regrets has policies around leaves for council members is very basic. Whereas the policy doesn't allow for flexibility in different forms of leaves for council members, doesn't allow for flexibility in terms of different forms of leaves, reduced work hours, or other options, forcing a counselor to either work through their challenges or go without their stipend. Whereas stipend supports the hours of and work contributed by council members who rely on them to pay costs. Be it resolved that the executive committee recommend to council to replace Rule 7 with the following. Of this leave of absence, 3 weeks of these may be paid in relation to sick leave of absence or mental health leave of absence, illness, bereavement. No proof of medical note is required for this. Reduced hours surrounding times of these leaves of absence may be seen and shall not be determined as neglect of duties or unresponsibly penalized. It is the expectation of the executive in question that there shall be an appropriate move to normalcy in terms of the expectation of workload. Is there a mover for this?
Corbett moves.
Corbett moves. Is there a seconder?
Serena seconds.
Serena seconds. All right, Corbett, did you want to introduce your motion?
Sure, but quick, Jess says something in chat about an amendment.
Jess, did you have anything?
I have an amendment to the motion. Should I do it now or after Corbett speaks on it?
Get your choice.
Okay, I'll just do it now. I was wondering if we can change 3 weeks to be more specific to say 21 staggered business days, so that it doesn't, so for example, 3 weeks won't include weekends as well as holidays. The 21 will include Monday to Friday business days. And then the staggered would say that like I could take Monday to Friday off in August. And then if I need it in October, I will take the other, whatever remaining is left. And then after bereavement, bracket, no proof of medical note is required for this bracket period. I would also like to add something on, I would like to add ceremonial leave and family obligations. So for ceremonial leave, that could encompass anything that requires a student, especially Indigenous students, to go to ceremony. And then for family obligations, that will encompass something if a executive or someone needs to take care of a family member. A family would consist of, yeah, it could be your immediate, but for many BIPOC families, it could be a family friend, it could be a cousin, it could be a nephew, a niece. It's very broad in terms of what we believe a family is in BIPOC families. Also, not expecting us to ask or to press on or to make an exec disclose what their family obligation is or what ceremony the exec needs to attend out of respect, and just to encourage privacy as well. So I'm going to add that in the chat. So after the bereavement, could we also add ceremonial leave and family obligations?
So just to confirm the amendment you're proposing, Jess, it's to strike 3 weeks with 21 business days and add ceremonial leave, and family obligations after bereavement.
Yes.
Okay. So Jess is moving an amendment to the main motion. Is there a seconder for this amendment?
Corbett seconds.
Corbett seconds. Jess, I know you kind of already explained it as you were making the amendment, but was there anything else that you wanted to add? Go ahead.
Yeah, I just, especially for ceremony and family obligations and things with mental health, leave of absence, illness, like these are things that we really can't control. And because some of us are in caregiver roles, some of us do need to take care of our families and have different responsibilities that we choose not to disclose with the executive or with in open camera sessions that are recorded. Like we have responsibilities outside of this job that need us, that require us to take leaves. It's also a risk that we play, whether it be, do I suffer more for my mental health or should I, so that I can get paid for this week? Some of us need to pay rent. Some of us need to buy groceries. Some of us need to save money for other family members. I think that in doing this, it will provide and make sure that the space that we work at is equitable. The positions that we hold, majority of us are BIPOC executives, and we can't risk losing like money for this. We already have like a lot of responsibilities outside of this job. And it's when we take leave that's unpaid, it's a high risk that we can't afford other things to do that, so that we are at the expense of other things as well. So I'm going to voice my support for this motion with amendments made.
Corbett, you had a comment on the amendment.
Yeah, I support it as well. I remember talking with Jess and others, I think, about this, and I'm sorry, I forgot to include it in the updated version of the motion. And yeah, it makes a lot more sense to have changed the word to days, because we'd want people to assume that, you know, the 3 weeks or so, the idea is it needs to be flexible, because some people might only need a few days of leave, some might need more, and it should fit in with yeah, it should be flexible.
Thank you, Corbett. Jess, I see that you said that you forgot to include staggered. I don't, like, in my opinion, I don't think adding the word staggered makes a difference, because the policy doesn't specify that it needs to be taken all at once, and so therefore it wouldn't be enforced that way. Cool. Matt, go ahead. You have a comment on the amendment.
Oh, I can also just retract my list until we actually have discussion on the full motion.
Oh, sounds good. Thank you, Matt. Did anyone have any last comments or questions on the amendment? All right, well, we'll put the amendment to a vote so we can return back to discussion on the main motion. All those in favor of the amendment proposed by Jess, seeking unanimous consent, please raise your hand if you'd like to vote against or abstain. And I'm seeing no objection, so that amendment to the main motion is carried unanimously. And we'll move back to the main motion. And so I do want to return the floor back to Corbett, as he was the mover, and then Matt can go after that, as he put himself on the speaker's list.
Okay, yeah, so the point of this motion is to allow more flexibility. Because this is a motion has to be approved by council, this is a motion to from exec to recommend this policy change. From a timeline perspective, we could have made it on as a notice of motion for October 13th council meeting, but because the following council meeting is the AGM, we won't actually be able to vote on this until, unfortunately, mid-November. But if we delay it even further, it'll take even longer to get it on. And originally, my plan was to put this and have governance go through a lot of this, but realistically, it's not, you don't need to make a big full-fleshed policy with all the different combinations of possibilities. This particular change actually just covers a lot of different situations and is more flexible and simple, I think. So we just have to do one swap out where we basically removing the part that says leave allowances are unpaid or non-remunerated to they can be remunerated in a certain couple different ways. So, thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Corbett. Matt, you can go next.
Yeah, thanks. I just want to voice my support for this motion, and I would just want to say that I think this is really essential. I think like moving forward, especially for executive members of council, and I think that this will support like a lot of folks, and I'm glad that this is being presented as a recommendation, and also to really thank like folks who have worked on this, and also, you know, changement of amendments to make sure that we're keeping like a really like equity focused lens on this and trying to create like a more supportive environment. Because if we look at like even for ourselves, like this is my second term, and even going through like COVID or like things like that, and even seeing like other board members from last year and challenges and things that people have faced, it would have been really nice to support folks like, I guess like in just to make people feel secure like financially with the work, and to make them feel supported, because we are trying to move towards like, I hope, a way in which like we can support folks in this role moving forward, especially like BIPOC community members. Like we understand like what it is like to face barriers, and I don't want folks to, you know, have to give up the opportunity to sit on these executive spaces just because like things come up with their family or things happen and they won't receive support after that, or they're going to be docked because, you know, they're not fulfilling like duties due to certain obligations or like circumstances and barriers that we know and understand. And I hope that moving forward, like people see that as a way that we are trying to make it more accessible for, you know, others to participate in these roles, because we understand that, you know, for us, like these roles aren't intended for us, and they're literally made so that we can face every barrier along the way. So I hope that we can change that it is more flexible, that it is more supportive, and that folks feel a sense of security moving forward. And we hear from students like all the time the challenges that they face, and I think that is like a barrier of not having like, you know, we don't have you know, any type of other support. Like we don't have like any type of like leave or like anything like that, or sick days, or, you know, when especially with COVID, like I know folks have had to take like days sometimes, and those are unpaid, and then you have to pay rent, and you have to you know, find ways to make up that time. And at the end of the day, we're also students, you know, we're studying as well. Like we find precarious work and we do what we can to get by. And like, I'm glad that we have these positions. We are very privileged to do the work that we have, but also I feel like, you know, after our board term, I also want folks to feel safe and secure in these positions as well.
Thank you so much, Matt, for sharing. Serena, you're on the speakers list.
Yeah, I guess most of what I wanted to say has already been said, but I just wanted to speak in favor of this motion. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yeah, we can hear you perfectly.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, just because I know that this may have been the situation for others as well. But I know when I went on my leave of absence, there was a lot of questions about whether I could afford to take 2 weeks off, or that the fact that a leave of absence after that point was out of the question because I had to come up with rent somehow after that month. And there's a lot of questions that come with that. I definitely agree that we are privileged in a weird kind of way to be in these positions where there's not a lot of a safety net, especially for marginalized folks. If someone has or is more likely to need to take time off, it can be an equity issue where a person's getting paid less for a similar amount of work because of situations outside of their control. So yeah, I think that's all for me. Just wanted to speak in favor of this motion.
Thank you, Serena, and thank you everyone for speaking to the motion. I'm also in support of this motion. I think that we often don't afford ourselves the support and the self-care and the you know, what we need to be able to do these jobs and to do them in a good way. We are very privileged, I think, as a lot of people have mentioned, to do this work, to do advocacy work and be paid for it. That's not a lot of, that is not an opportunity that many activists in general are afforded. And so I think that recognizing that, you know, this work is very hard and at times we will face barriers. And we'll need to step away from these positions to recoup and to deal with those barriers that we're facing. And right now it's very binary. It's either you are all in or you're all out. And I think that is not a approach that is healthy or that we should be condoning as a student society. We need to be respectful of people's labor. We need to be respectful of people's personal circumstances. And we need to be compassionate, and our policies have not been written in this way for a very, very long time. And so I'm in support of this policy amendment and hoping that council passes it as well, passes this recommendation. Jess.
Just last thing quick. I put in the chat, but like I want us as employers and as students and as student executives in these positions to normalize that it's okay to take breaks and leave of absences, to take care of yourselves, to take care of your family members. And when we don't take care of ourselves, we can't do this job well. We're risking, we're like, honestly, like our mental health has been really poor recently, like in these positions and moving back to in-person, and like, if we don't create these safety nets for us, if we don't protect ourselves, like we're adding and building onto that idea of capitalism, working on from like 9 to 5, but we don't even work 9 to 5. We work all the damn time, 24/7, literally on top of school. So hopefully we can take this to council and then we can express again our supports at council and then have this passed.
Thank you, Jess. Before we put the main motion to a vote, actually, I've noticed one error. And so I'd actually like to move to amend the motion. There's just one line in the last sentence that says, it is the expectation of the executive in question. I believe that should say, it is the expectation of the counselor in question, because it's not just executives that take leaves of absence. That option is available to all counselors as well, including non-executive counselors. So I just like to move to strike the word executive in the last sentence to counselor. If I can grab a seconder for that.
Corbett seconds.
Corbett seconds. Does this make sense? Okay. Jess, this makes sense to you?
Yes, I agree.
Okay, we'll put the amendment to a vote. So just to restate, we're moving to strike executive in the last sentence with the word counselor. We'll put this to a vote then. All those in favor of the amendment to the main motion seeking unanimous consent, please raise your hand if you'd like to vote against or abstain. The amendment is carried unanimously. And so we're back to the main motion. Any last discussion before we put this to a vote as well? Okay, we'll put the main motion to a vote. All those in favor seeking unanimous consent, please raise your hand if you'd like to vote against or abstain. This is carried. The next question is titled, let's just say club storage in the sub. And I'll read the question now. Whereas the SFU Robot Soccer Club has approached the SFSS about storage of carpets for their events. Whereas the carpets are 5 rolls with the measurements of 2 meters by 50 meters. Is meters right? That's not, okay. And roll up to be 2 meters by 0.5 meters. Whereas the VP Internal and Organizational Development and the building manager have corresponded with the club and their needs, whereas the building manager has identified multiple storage spaces that they could hold their carpets. Be it resolved that the executive committee approves storing these carpets in a room selected by the VP Internal and the building manager. Is there a mover?
Corbett moves.
Corbett moves. Is there a seconder?
Matt?
Matt seconds. Corbett, you have the floor as the mover of the motion.
Yeah, thank you. So yeah, this is something that's kind of going back and forth for a while. It's not too big of an ask, I don't think. They have 5 rolls that they roll up be fairly long individually, but this is just to support them in their activities that they do. What they do is they have these these rolls are work out as fields, soccer fields for these robots, and they use them as part of their events and their activities and such. And so they were able to get some kind of decent deal from a supplier in China, but they need storage space to secure them. And so we've been going back and forth for a couple months now, just trying to sort out specifics and such. And so they've even said, you know, if storage becomes an issue, they can even sell 4 out of the 5 rolls as necessary. They had to buy in bulk to be able to get this discount, so they had to buy more than they needed. The biggest thing was mostly access was a concern, more in the sense of like where if they have easy access to some different relevant size storage rooms. So for the most part, I just figure it'd be good to get a yes or no from exec on storage or not on these things, because we don't really have any formal process for like approving storage space and such. But this is relatively small. It won't be taking up a whole storage room. It'd just be taking a part of one most likely, or just taking a spot in one for now.
Yeah, this makes sense to me. Fairly straightforward. But I do, sorry, this is just a very minute question, but are the measurements correct? 2 meters by 50 meters? That's a lot.
It is. That's and I mentioned that to him like that. So I was curious around. They originally just told us like that whole amount, and it's like a by dimension kind of thing. It really rolls out, but it's very thin, so it doesn't roll up to be. It won't be very thick. I originally had the same kind of question about that. And yeah, they're divided into 4 strips. So, but again, I don't think they need all of that. They won't need all of it. So in the future, they probably will sell it off for making some trust fund stuff. But yeah, it's the big net number was really big originally. I was like, that's way too much, but it's fine. Yeah, it works out.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that sounds good, Corbett. Thank you. Did anyone have any questions or comments? Seeing none, we'll put this to a vote. The motion is on the executive committee approving the storage of these carpets in a room to be selected by the VP Internal and the building manager. All those in favor of this motion seeking unanimous consent, if you would like to vote against or abstain, please raise your hand now. All right, this is carried unanimously. This takes us to our next motion, which is titled Accessible Course Practices Campaign AGM Motion. And so I'll read the motion now. Whereas the SFSS has launched the Accessible Course Practices campaign, whereas this campaign has been gaining traction with the in-person fall semester now underway, whereas the AGM is near and it provides an opportunity to bolster the Accessible Course Practices campaign, be it resolved that the executive committee add the following motion to the annual general meeting agenda. And circulated to you all today is the motion under question to be adding to the AGM agenda. I'm not going to read it out loud just for the purposes of time, but it is also in the chat if you want to scroll up. Is there a mover for the motion? Is there, well, sorry, I submitted the motion, so I guess I suppose I'll move. Do I have a seconder for this?
Serena?
Oh,
Serena seconds. All right, and so I won't say too much on this first because Kashish was here and she submitted the intention was to try and pass this at council last week, but just due to time constraints, it wasn't possible. And so really this meeting is the last opportunity we have to submit questions for the annual general meeting agenda on behalf of council. And so Kashish, I don't know if you want to talk about the proposal at all.
The whole plan is to put it on the AGM so more of our membership knows about the Accessible Course Practices campaign and that they have an opinion of saying that they agree that SFU should answer to our demands on the campaign and they should be working towards, you know, making education more accessible and everything. And I just thought that the AGM was a good platform to start, especially since after the AGM, the working group will also be releasing the open letter soon, and the AGM sort of just gives it more traction and more of visibility within the SFU community. That's all.
Thanks so much, Kashish. Yeah, I'm really happy to see this move forward. I think it will do wonders in terms of bolstering support for the Accessible Course Practices campaign. We saw last year with the tuition condemnation vote that that questions that are put forward to the membership can really bolster campaigns. So I'm really happy to see this question going forward too. And it's incredibly relevant. So I'm happy to see this going forward to the annual general meeting. And I think it will do a lot in terms of drumming up turnout. So yeah, did anyone else have any, is there any discussion on the motion at hand? I see pluses from Serena. Corbett, are you lost?
Always.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I support this. So I'm happy to see this go on the agenda for the AGM. And I really hope students vote for it in favor of it.
Yeah, thank you, Corbett, for that. Did anyone else have anything to add? Okay, I'm seeing none. So I think it's safe to say we can put this question to a vote. And so the question is on adding the motion regarding the Accessible Course Practices campaign to the annual general meeting agenda. All those in favor seeking unanimous consent on this motion. If you'd like to vote against or abstain, please raise your hand. All right, fantastic. Seeing none, this is carried unanimously. And thank you, Kashish, so much for coming to speak to the motion and for putting it forward in the first place. This is amazing. Also, you're more than welcome to stay if you want, but no pressure to if you don't want to or you have other things to do. We will, Corbett, you had one more motion that you wanted to put forward, but it's not on the agenda now. Do you have that prepared?
Yes, I do. I got response back. Just give me a minute to grab that stuff again.
Yeah.
I did send an email to as part of the agenda chain, so it might be easier if you want to find it, or I can look for it now. Just so I had it written down somewhere.
I personally do not, was not looped into the email chain in question.
Oh, no, it's the one that for their agendas and stuff that gets spent when we want to make amendments after the deadline's been passed.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, I see.
I'm going to break it up into a couple chunks because it's not going to be too long. So give me a second. I'll post it now.
All right, so Corbett, are you moving to amend the agenda to add this motion?
Yes, I am.
All right, do I have a seconder?
Serena?
Serena seconds. All right, all those in favor of adding this motion, seeking unanimous consent? All right, that's carried unanimously. So we'll move right into considering the motion that was just added. So we'll consider this as 7.9, divest bylaw, AGM question submission. And the question reads, whereas the SFSS ran a spring referendum question to enshrine the SFSS's divest policy into the SFSS bylaws, whereas the question received enough yes votes above the 2/3 requirement, whereas the total votes cast was below the 5% quorum needed for referendums and was therefore not binding on the society, whereas the executive committee can add motions to change bylaws to an annual general meeting agenda. Be it resolved that the executive committee approve adding the AGM agenda the following motion. And that motion is in the chat. Corbett has just posted it in the chat. Again, I will not read it out loud just for the sake of time, but it is there for you to read. Is there a mover?
Corbett moves.
Corbett moves. Do I have a seconder?
Matt.
Matt seconds. All right, Corbett, you can you have the floor.
Yeah, so this was one of the motions of that we attempted in the spring referendum, but it didn't get quorum, so it wasn't binding. The whole point of this is to now set this up to go to the AGM, which exec can do, and the goal of this motion is ultimately the motion of the AGM is to enshrine our current divestment policies into bylaws, so that even the future boards, councils can't change them without the membership's approval, because policies can change, and a future board might not care about divestment at all, and just might want to go for the money if that's actually a financially viable way, even though energy is volatile. So yeah, it's really just putting this to the AGM and have an exec do it. We weren't able to get this on the council agenda last Wednesday because the group SFE 350 that we've been working with since the start of this wasn't sure at the time if they had the capacity to campaign, but I just got word today that they do.
Fantastic. Well, I'm excited to see this this being proposed to go forward. Yeah, is there any questions or comments? Okay, well, seeing none, we'll put this question to a vote. The question is on adding this motion to the AGM agenda. All those in favor seeking unanimous consent, if you'd like to vote against or abstain, please raise your hand now to indicate your vote. That's carried unanimously. Thank you, everyone. So that takes us to new business, or sorry, that concludes new business rather. We do have one item in camera, but I would like Aisha to be present for this item. And so I don't know if I'd actually like to I'd like to move to commit the in-camera discussion item to the HR and Personnel Subcommittee, which is meeting next week. And to also postpone this discussion for the next executive committee meeting. So let me just commit to HRP. So there's two things, commit to HRP and to bring this back to the next exec meeting. Is there, well, I move that. Is there a seconder?
Jess seconds.
Jess seconds. All those in favor of this seeking unanimous consent? Carried unanimously. And so this moves us right into our discussion items. Let's see how many discussion items we can bang through in 20 minutes before I have to leave. Jess, office space community guidelines. This was submitted by you.
Yes, I know I submitted a lot of discussion questions today, so I'm going to try and make it fast and more of like updates, I guess. So the first one is on office-based community guidelines. This is created with the intention that our office space is a space where we can all see it as a place of working, obviously as a place of community, but where we're comfortable in doing that as well. So I was wondering if we're able to take a few minutes at our own time to write on this Google Doc what we want this office space to be, and then for next executive meeting we can pass this office community guidelines. So could we do that for the next 2 minutes?
Yeah. Oh, shoot. There's also something else I was going to do. Oh, sorry, I didn't realize I was unmuted.
It's okay.
I did realize there's never mind. We'll get it sorted out later. I just remember we were supposed to review the guidelines and make some changes for access outside of operating hours for execs. I completely forgot, or council members technically. I completely forgot that.
Yeah, we'll have to consider that at another time.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, either you amend the agenda to include it or outside of this meeting.
Yeah, we'll do it outside the meeting. We'll talk about it outside the meeting first.
Yeah. So Jess, is there anything in particular you want to discuss about the guidelines currently, or are you just asking execs to take time to read it and at our next meeting, add things to it, and then at our next meeting, we approve it?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Does that sound agreeable to, I'm agreeable to that, Jess, and I want to thank you for initiating this. I think it is really, really positive thing we can all come to common a consensus on how to share space and to really be respectful of everyone who uses that space. Is it agreeable to everyone that we can commit to reading this on our own time and coming and within now and the next meeting, we add stuff to the document? Can I just see a thumbs up if you're in agreement?
I'm in agreement.
Other executives? I want to make sure everyone is good with this. Almas, Matt, Serena. Okay. Well, thank you, Jess. Did you want to handle the next discussion item, which was also yours, work name tags?
Yes. So I would like our staff to wear name tags, especially staff who are in front-facing positions. It has been expressed to me that some students in the sub have been rude when they've been asked to put their mask on because they don't see them as staff who work and who help support the running of the student union building itself. So I would suggest to have, I can take lead of this, or I can place it by the end of this week, where our staff would wear these name tags when they're out and about. But to have just their position on there, as well as just their logo, I have been talking to staff about what they would want, whether it be like a picture, whether they want their name on there. But for privacy concerns, I suggest not to have their name on there, just so like students don't look them up or something. Positions, that name tag could be left and then reused as well. What does folks think about that?
I lost you there for about 3 or 4 seconds. I don't know if that was just me, but I will open the floor up for discussion if anyone wants to add anything. Any discussion from folks?
think it's good.
Yeah, Jess, I would suggest in doing this, I think Aisha and Samaya would be the best folks to contact about ordering some name tags. Anyone else? Okay. Sounds good. So I'm going to move on from this discussion then, as we have some action items on that. 10.3 committee email motions. Jess, this is also you.
Yes, so it's been found that we passed a lot of email motions without a lot of action items to be given afterwards. So for example, like a lot of them is also very monetary. So for example, like passing $5,000 at exec to support X, Y, and Z. It's been difficult to keep track of that because there's no actual meeting record of it, if there's no Zoom call or if there's no recorded meeting. So I spoke to Samaya about this. She created an Excel sheet in our council folder where as chairs, it should be our job moving forward to put any email motions in this Excel spreadsheet. And then we should also notify non-executive counselors of this as well, just to make sure that we're keeping track of everything.
Yeah, Jess, I agree with you. We've had a problem. Well, first of all, usually it's not a common practice to pass things by email motion, and usually it's only done for things that are time sensitive. And I was thinking about this too, and I think that one thing that we can do in order to make sure that they are tracked is that if a motion is passed via email, that at the subsequent meeting, it actually gets added to the agenda as like its own separate section that maybe is something like report on motions passed between meetings, and that they kind of show up on the agenda as if, for example, like a notice of motion for a policy change would. It's just a notice that this is something that has been passed, and we're in the spirit of transparency including this on the agenda to show people that this is something that the executive committee did approve, and that there is also an opportunity for questions for anyone to question the executive committee on why that motion was passed. And I think there's also some work too to codify that in policy, that is something that we should be doing. That is an obligation of ours. Ella has a direct response, and then Jess after.
Yeah, I did want to voice my support for your suggestion. That being said, if exec wants to go with Jess's original idea, I would suggest transferring the ownership of the document over to Somaye so that we can keep that institutional memory and we can have the sheet there for us after this council group has transitioned out.
Yeah, thanks for that, Ella. Jess, you're up next.
Especially since we just talked about having the internal communications with our staff. Also, our staff won't be looped in these email motions. So if we're going to make this more accessible, then our staff will also be made aware and be notified about what happened, even through emails, right? Just because we don't have that record through recorded meeting minutes. So that will be really supportive of on both sides.
Thank you, Jess. Corbett, go ahead.
Yeah, I like a little bit of both. What you've suggested, Gabe, so that it's in our minutes in some form, but also a tracker is definitely needed. That then allows people to and then be updated and checked on and make sure that those motions actually pass or are actually acted on. So, and definitely having relevant staff looped in and such so that it gets, yeah, like I said, acted on.
Thanks, Corbett. Did anyone else have anything they wanted to add? Matt, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to add that I think it's also good just for exact, like, and I know sometimes it might be like a little bit tedious, and I know that some folks are working on like multiple things and are submitting multiple things for meetings, but to also just keep track like of ourselves, like, because for what I do, what I've been doing this year, which is a little bit new, is just I have a document that I have all the motions and discussion items and things that I have submitted to council, but also all the committees I'm a part of. And I know that like folks are chairing multiple committees and things like that, but it also just helps like that institutional memory, like for the next person who will be taking on your portfolio next year, but also just like if there needs to be something like, oh, like what day did I submit this on? And there's nothing like, there's no discussion or like anything, but just like the motion itself. If there was any amendments and what day that happened on, just for ourselves, and then we're able to log it. So that might help in terms of like if it's just for yourself, but also sharing it with folks if they need support with that. And it's also good because I'll be attaching this to like my reports, not like weekly reports, but like semester reports. So just a thought, just for ourselves.
Thanks so much, Matt, for sharing that. That's really helpful. Yeah, did anyone else have anything they wanted to add on this? Okay, I've already notified Corbett, but I do have to go in like 30 seconds. So I'm just going to pass the chair off to Corbett to finish the rest of the discussion items, if that's okay, Corbett.
That's fine. Just make me host, I guess, so it continues to record, right?
There you go.
Thank you.
Okay, I have to go, everyone, but bye-bye.
Okay.
Bye, Gabe. Thank you.
Okay. Are we all good with this particular discussion item? We can move on to the next. Okay. It's gonna be interesting because all of us are with no cams on right now, or yeah, no cameras on. So, okay. Next, moving on to 10.3 committee. Oh, sorry, 10.4 club and DSU in-person event guidelines. Submitted by Jess, VP Events and Student Affairs. Jess, go ahead, Jess.
I wanted to update you all on what is happening with events. In the chat, I will paste a Zoom link. I think Ella and some of the staff, you won't have access to this. So I'm going to share another link as well where you can view this. So I'll do that again. Please let me know if you don't have access to it, but I would love if you could follow along. I met with some of our MSCs in the past 2 weeks, and we were updating our in-person event guidelines. Before, we had no events within the sub just because we didn't have the capacity to do that. Moving forward, we decided as a collective, and we would love your opinion as execs, that we continue to not host any events within the sub as of yet until further notice. However, we did change some things on this document to reflect the changes made from the PHO, especially with vaccine cards, and also because of Delta and the 4th wave. So some things that kept the same is it is mandatory to submit this application form. So we did change the name from it to be a checklist to an application form, because for your event, whether it be a club or student union, this has to be approved by our MSCs. Another thing that stayed the same was the COVID-19 contact tracing list. It is recommended that it's submitted to the student center, or if not, it can be kept within your own student union or club or your constituency group. Things that have changed are our vaccine and government issued IDs. So according to the PHO, depending on the amount of people you have, you would be required to actually check whether or not you are vaccinated. So we put links to the PHO website to make sure that everything is in line. The verifier app must be used. So let's say, for example, I'm having a movie night at Boston Pizza, and I will invite X amount of people. I am going to designate Sarah, who is another executive, let's say, on my movie night club. Sarah would be the designated executive from the group to have the verifier app on her phone, and she will be out the door checking everyone's proof of vaccination. Now, there are different ways to check this proof of vaccination. Some students will have screenshots of it on their app. Some will have the paper version. Some are international students or out of province, so then the ID would be different. You won't necessarily have the BC approved card, but you would have something from out of province, or even like your passport as a proof of ID. So I would encourage students to familiarize themselves with what the BC provincial health order is saying of what is approved or not. That is one way that students could host events external to the sub. If you are hosting an event on campus, we are still limiting it to 25 people, including the executives that you have. We are also offering, encouraging students, because we aren't hosting events within the sub, to follow SFU guidelines if you are booking within their spaces. The other change is for off-campus events. So listen carefully. For off-campus events may have an attendance of more than 25 people. So we did increase the amount of people that students are allowed to have at their events, provided that the licensed venues' COVID health and safety guidelines are followed, in addition to the provincial health orders as well. These events will be approved by the SFSS on a case-by-case basis. Of course, events at private residence are not allowed. When you do have an event off campus, let's say I host that event at Queen Elizabeth Theatre. Queen Elizabeth Theatre, let's say, would have the capacity of 50% of their building, and I'm going to choose to follow that 50% capacity, which will obviously go above the 25 people rule that we have as well, which we are allowing. I'm going to seek Queen Elizabeth Theatre to see if they have any COVID-19 protocols and safety guidelines and anything like that, which I will attach an email along with this application form to Student Center. So we increase this because we want the flexibility of students to host events with larger capacities in venues and in spaces that can handle them, that their staffing can help and support them in that way. So I would love to know your opinion on that after Corbett opens the floor for discussion. Another thing that stayed the same is that face masks, of course, are going to be mandatory. We're making it mandatory because of the PHO, but also through SFSS, and hand sanitizer. And if students don't have that, we're offering to give that for students to pick up at the Go desk. Other things that stayed the same would be, again, the contact tracing, the advertisement of your event. So for example, it is mandatory that your club, student union, constituency group promote SFSS COVID-19 safety protocols. So when you post something on social media, when you're posting in person, something small that would say we're following COVID-19 safety guidelines, or saying that masks are mandatory, or that a COVID-19 contact tracing list will be kept, or that proof of vaccination will be checked at the event, etc. Just to be transparent and just to have student unions and clubs and constituency groups state their expectations. The rest stays the same. Other things that changed was the event details. just having more specific information that we want students to disclose to us. And then at the bottom, we have a little thing for students to sign. I have read and understood the above guidelines and agreed to abide by them, and that I verify that the information provided above is true and correct, etc. I would love to know your opinion on this, because I would like this to be passed within executive and at our next exec meeting, and then brought as an update to council. So that's it.
Thank you, Jess. Yeah, sorry for, yeah, thank you. So is there any discussion, comments, concerns, questions? Please list yourself. So just to reiterate, Jess, this will be coming back to exec on next meeting, correct?
Or because if exec won't have another meeting within 2 weeks, I might do it through like an email motion to have this pass, because student unions and clubs, I'm getting a lot of inquiries about what to do. This is not advertised yet via email at all. I would like this to get passed probably within the week. So it'll probably be through email motion. And then I want to provide an update at next council meeting if possible.
Okay, yeah, because next meeting would be a exec dev session, I believe. So, or next week would be. So probably have to do an email motion then. Okay. Again, any questions from people? And Matthew, go ahead. Or Matt, go ahead.
Thanks. Yeah, no, I just want to say thanks for organizing this. I remember earlier, I guess a little bit later in the summer, when I was kind of like supporting like the COVID like in-person like event like protocols. I'm glad to see that like there are some I'm glad to see that hopefully getting to a place where like folks like DSUs and clubs and constituency groups can plan for things. Yeah, I just also want to say that I think this is like really important, because I guess like students are requesting like inquiries. So just to make sure that I guess we're giving them like protocols that are up to date, and things are changing. And as we know, like things could change like within a week's time. And yeah, so I'm in support. Yeah, sorry, just really tired. So that's kind of all I have to say on this.
Thank you, Matt. If there's no other comments or questions, we'll go on to the next discussion item. So kind of last chance. Okay, moving on to 10.5, collective agreement bargaining, submitted by Gabe, but he's obviously not here. So I will do my best to, most likely, I guess it's like an update. As you all know, the collective agreement has been ratified by both parties, both the union and the council at a unanimous vote, which is probably a miracle. And so we're very, very happy to see that happen. It was ratified by the council at the previous council meeting on last Wednesday. Since then, we've been having, I believe there's a joint statement being worked on between the union and us, with Aisha and Gabe, I believe, being in the main people discussing that. I get looped in the odd email. I've already started recommending setting up a kind of like a finance focused group with financial coordinators and Almas and myself to sort out all the different nuts and bolts related to who would, like, how back pay and stuff can be sorted out, and figuring out the numbers ahead on to make sure we can have enough, we pull enough from our surplus and stuff to cover initial costs. I believe there's also going to be there's already a scheduled follow-up meeting with the bargaining committee to do a kind of a wrap up. So that's what I know about. If there's anything else, like Matt, you're on the committee, if there's any additional items that you've been looped into, please let me know. Please let the group know.
Not at the moment, but yes, I am glad that it is done.
So am I. It's very interesting and very I don't know, rewarding experience, but it's also been very long. Because effectively the collective agreement expired in like summer last year, or no, summer 2019, and so we got it done. And the next one would be in 2025, 2028. Yeah, summer would expire in summer 2025, I believe. Or no, rather, yeah, basically. And so the next, for a couple of years, will be the one to, the council in the next couple of years will be the ones to start the negotiations then. Hopefully we have all, we and future councils set everyone up to make that bargaining easier or relatively painless and smooth. Any questions or comments or concerns by anyone in the group? Congrats. Thanks. Yes, Jess, congrats. It's over. Is there any, if there's no more comments, then we'll move on to the next item, to the last discussion item. Excuse me one second, bring this up again. Item 10.6, Burnaby Mountain Gondola Campaign, submitted by Gabe as well. Unfortunately, I don't know much details about this. Matt, do you know more about what this might be about? Or Serena?
Sorry, not necessarily. If there was any meetings, I don't believe I was at that last one. So I don't have any updates on my end.
Okay, well, I'll probably, maybe I'll ask Gabe to send an email or something to update everyone, so there's at least something written down, or he can bring it up at the next meeting if it's not time sensitive.
Hey, Corbett, I have a direct response on that.
Okay, thanks. Sure, go ahead, Beatty.
Yeah, so based on previous campaign advocacy plan for 2021, it sounded like it's something that it's in the process, but me, Matt, and Serena and Muriel will be following up and see where the process is, but where the progress is, sorry, and then catch up with Gabe on it. So it's something that Sarah really invested in. So it will be great if we continue with the project. So I'll also wait on Gabe to just let us know what's going on. But I think it's mostly under the jurisdiction of me, Muriel, Gabe, Matt, and Serena, but we don't have details. That's the challenge.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, last I heard, what was kind of being held up was just getting another vote at Burnaby City Council, and that we had we've had some people. I think Gabe gave a tour to one of the Burnaby City councilors and talked about the need for the gondola and such. So I think one of the things is trying to get council to actually put it on their agenda again, and organize a campaign around that, and campaign around getting them to vote yes to it, because I believe a bunch of other organizations like the Translake side or other groups within Burnaby are just waiting for the city council to say yes so that they can then officially say yes and stuff. I don't know the full specifics if that's what the case was or if there's something else going on, but I'll check in with Gabe, or we can check in with Gabe. If there's anything else, if there's nothing else, then we'll move on to adjournment. 12.1, be resolved to adjourn the meeting at 4:10 p.m. Do I have a mover?
Matt.
Do I have a seconder?
Jess.
Thank you both. Any discussion? Okay, none. All in favor, seeking unanimous consent, and please unmute your mic or use the raise hand feature in Zoom, and I will call on you to record your vote. Seeing none, that's meeting is adjourned. Thank you all for coming, and I hope you have the good rest of your day.
Bye, you too. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
See you later.
Bye.
Bye.